Accounting, and University of Hong Kong Business School. So we believe that this is a great opportunity for us to share the ideas and also enhance academic collaborations between the universities. And we hope you will find this workshop very fruitful and engaging. And now I would like to introduce our distinguished guests from the international universities who are pleased to have with us Dr. Trịnh Quốc Đạt, Dean of School of Economics, Finance and Accounting. Dr. Lê Văn Trơn, Vice Dean of School of Economics, Finance and Accounting. From University of Hong Kong, our honor to introduce Dr. Zigang Wang, Director of Finance of Business School. And Professor Lê Vũ Quân, Academic Director of University of Hong Kong in Vietnam. And now to kick off the program, let me share with you some of the video clips about international universities and University of Hong Kong.
Throughout time, inspiration has been our beacon at Hong Kong U Business School. Here, we strive to inspire students with new knowledge and perspectives to empower them to become visionary market leaders in the world of tomorrow. Leveraging Hong Kong U's heritage, we have established a robust range of both academic and corporate partnerships in mainland China and around the globe. We take pride in being the youngest and most dynamic faculty, and our well-founded tradition in education has prepared students to navigate the ever-evolving challenges in the business world and contribute to their corresponding fields and industries. Our full spectrum of business education is fully accredited, with a range of highly regarded programs that sit among the top of international rankings.
Over the years, the Hong Kong U Business School has always been staying ahead of market changes. We witness the development of the global, regional, and local economy, and timely introduce versatile and world-leading programs to nurture talent that best meet the needs of the dynamic business world.
Studying here in the HKU Business School has definitely granted me an edge over others. I've been provided with the much-needed global exposure that incorporates a unique Asian perspective. I'm therefore much more prepared to engage with the rapidly changing markets of today, especially on the rich soil of mainland China.
At Hong Kong U Business School, our outstanding research efforts demonstrate our perseverance and our commitment to empowering our students. With our aim and dedication to becoming a global powerhouse for research and a hub for world-leading expertise, we provide an ideal platform of lifelong learning for our students. We lead at the frontier in the emergent fields of data analytics, machine learning, digital transformation, and new business trends.
HKU Business School emphasizes human capital development. Over 40 new scholars have joined the school in the past few years to carry forward our research and teaching performance. HKU Business School will continue to proactively recruit scholars, excelling in different academic fields.
Hong Kong U Business School is a valued partner, not just for HSBC, but for the whole of Hong Kong business community. It is the incubator for the next generation of corporate entrepreneurs and leaders, a vital source of research and expertise, producing new markets and industries. We are proud to be part of a wide range of activities that bring together scholars, industry leaders, and the public to pave the way for Hong Kong's future success.
Graduates and alumni from HKU Business School possess a proven distinction that stands out beyond fields and translates beyond markets and location.
HKU Business School's unique edges enable us to be always ahead of market trends, addressing the changing needs of employers and institutions, as well as equipping us with a global vision that is highly adaptable to the current dynamic environment.
Our international DNA, coupled with our world-leading academic and research capabilities, have fostered continuous collaboration with renowned academic partners on a global level. Our mission is to not only bring Hong Kong's business talent to the world, but also to build a tightly knit alumni network that fosters the exchange of ideas.
I'm proud and honored to become an academic at my alma mater, sharing my experiences with new leaders of the future. The HKU Business School is like a fountain of wisdom that never runs dry, empowering students and alumni to become the authors of their own success.
While we focused on creating growing excellence in Hong Kong, we have also looked beyond to grow our geographical presence, allowing us to capture emerging opportunities in the blooming China and ASEAN economies.
HKU Business School will continue to inspire new ideas and initiatives, to empower students to excel, to lead in the frontier of knowledge creation.
Our mission is to ignite the light of wisdom for future leaders and the world of tomorrow. We are ready to advance knowledge, to enrich minds, to transform lives, together with you.
Established on the 5th of December 2003, it is the first public university in Vietnam to use English as the primary language in teaching and research. International University has more than 10,000 undergraduate students and nearly 600 master's and Ph.D. students, with 21 bachelor's programs, 10 master's programs, and 4 Ph.D. programs. In addition, the university has 10 schools and 2 departments. In particular, IU also has nearly 40 twinning programs at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, with a range of academic programs and joint models to help students choose the one with the most suitable to their needs. The partners associated with the International University are all leading universities in the world, such as the University of New South Wales, Deakin University, Australia, University of Nottingham, the University of the West of England in the UK, Auckland University of Technology, New Zealand, the University of Houston, the State University of New York, Binghamton, USA. The International University is also a high-quality educational institution that is accredited by the Ministry of Education and Training in 2016, MOET 2016. International University is one of the most prestigious public universities in Vietnam, with 13 academic programs meeting the standards of the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance, AUNQA, and 2 academic programs meeting the standards of ABET, the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. The university owns 2 spacious, modern campuses, one in Tu Duc City, the other in Ho Chi Minh City. Both are equipped with state-of-the-art equipment, air-conditioned classrooms, and up to 45 laboratories for teaching and research. In particular, in 2018, the International University was ranked 7th among 7,000 universities in Southeast Asia and would meet the AUNQA's assessment standards at institutional level. Graduates from International University are highly regarded by the general public as well as domestic and international enterprises, and have made good contributions to many realms such as daily life, the economy, science, and technology. In order to promote the academic accomplishments of its undergraduate and postgraduate students, International University spends over 37 billion Vietnam dong per year on student scholarships based on their entrance exam results and their academic performance and their achievements in research. More than 220 ISI research articles are published by the International University lecturers every year, at an average of 2 international articles per PhD lecturer per year. The university library has a total area of nearly 1,160 square meters, with more than 33,000 books, 64,000 ebooks, and many other academic materials. The university canteen system, or the food court, which has 10 food stalls located on 3 different floors, with a total area of about 1,700 meters square. It can serve over 1,200 guests.
Thank you. And now we would like to welcome Dr. Wang with his workshop presentations about Stay Connected, Stay Finance, evidence from the global network of airlines and syndicated loans. A great applause to Dr. Wang.
Thanks very much. The associate dean, students, it's very much to be here. And it's a very new style. And before the presentation, it's my first time to have 2 advertisement videos before my academic presentation. And the video is very nice. I'm afraid that my academic talk is too serious compared to the videos. So my talk today is about the infrastructure. It's very special infrastructure, and its consequences, effects on the economic growth, the syndicated loans financing for the corporations in the world. Where is okay? So okay, it's my So I graduated from Tsinghua University in China in Beijing, and then I did my Ph.D. at Columbia University. Well, this is also new for me. Okay. And it doesn't have my slides. Where is my slides? Sorry. Maybe you're getting this. This is one. Yes. Got a lot of advertisements of the university and myself before the serious talk. This paper is co-authored with my PhD student Li Yan and junior colleague who also graduated from Tsinghua University before, Eddie. So my talk will follow the introduction and the hypothesis, the data, and some empirical results. So the slides, I have cut the slides shorter, so I will skip some the literature review part because I only have 15 minutes, right? So this research is falls into a very big area of the infrastructure's effects and consequences on the economic growth. So researchers have been very concerned about the relationship between the infrastructure development and the impact. Infrastructure, of course, is very important. The development has very high fixed costs. Okay, it's very difficult to recover the infrastructure costs in a very short run. Usually, for most countries in the U.S., in Europe, in China, in Japan, if the government decides to develop the infrastructure, usually they expect that within 100 years, they cannot recover all of the nominal costs. So some scholars argue that the government should only invest in the infrastructure when there is enough demand. So when people demand a lot of infrastructure, then the government should develop it. Now I can tell you some of my personal story. So yesterday, my friend gave me a car. So I drove the car from Ho Chi Minh City to Banyang. And I can tell you, this is the most adventurous driving experience in my life. such a narrow road, a lot of motorcycles, I can see that there is a huge demand of infrastructure, of the roads and highways in Vietnam. Other scholars argue that to plan the infrastructure development in advance is very important. You don't have to wait until people have enough demand to build the infrastructure. You should build that maybe 10 years, 20 years before people have the demand. Because if you don't have the infrastructure already built, then the demand and the business can just fly away. Say in India, a lot of Indian talents, they stay in the US and they don't get back. The reason is because if you really visited India, you find that the infrastructure is even worse. So a lot of people, they rather stay in the US for a mediocre, low-rank job. They prefer that than coming back to India to do some high-rank job, because the poor infrastructure in India will give them much lower living experience. So it is a arguable question whether infrastructure has a causal impact on economic growth. Because for some people, they say, if you plan the infrastructure development in advance, it will cause some overinvestment, like in China. In China, some of the cities, actually most of the low-tier cities, like in my hometown. My hometown is an average Chinese city. It probably ranks like 150, but it has over 500 buildings taller than Bitexo. So in China, there are a lot of high-rise buildings. Most of the apartments are very high-rise, but many of them are empty. So they call that ghost town or ghost cities. So this is a waste of resources. So in China, China has a very good the high-speed railway, the bullet train system. But for 95% of the bullet train system, they cannot recover their costs. Okay, so what is the timing to build the infrastructure? Whether it is good to build the infrastructure after or before there is a need, it's an academic question worth of investigation. But the relationship between the infrastructure and the economy is endogenous. You know, to tap that question, we have to find empirical evidence whether infrastructure building has a positive or negative impact on the economic growth. But you need to find out the causal relationship, which is difficult. The reason is that it is possible that fast-growing economy brings infrastructure development. So if you, from the empirical data from the other countries in the historical data, if you find a positive relationship between the infrastructure and the economic development, it doesn't really mean that infrastructure brings up the economic development. It's possibly because the economy has been developed very well, then there is a demand, then you build the infrastructure. So how do you causally find out the relationship is a question. You know, we have different infrastructure, paved roads. It's quite surprising to me that in Ho Chi Minh City, District 1, and so I was walking around there, there are some roads not paved, which is quite surprising to me. And subway, highway is also surprising to me that there is such a huge demand, but there is no highway here. And I was wishing a highway when I drove to Banyan. And railway, high-speed railway, you know, building this infrastructure can greatly improve people's living standard, but it's also very costly. For example, if you have if there is a high-speed railway between Banyan and Ho Chi Minh City, then the commuting time can be as short as 6 minutes from here to Banyan. But by driving, also because I'm an inexperienced driver in Vietnam, that was my first time driving, it took me 1.5 hours. Okay, you know, so international airports and flying cars. You see, this is Xpeng. It's a company in China, and I bought this car. It's an automatic driving car. It doesn't need you to drive. The car drives it by itself. So this company also developed the flying cars recently. They start to sell this flying car in 2 years. Well, although this is just a plan in China, it's already a reality in California. In California, there are some taxis that are flying. So this is another infrastructure that will shorten people's commuting time. Okay, and SpaceX is planning to have some crewed space flight to get the passengers into the rocket and fly from New York to Shanghai to Ho Chi Minh City within 2 hours. This is a new planned infrastructure. So people are investing in this, and they are all very costly. The subway costs over 100 million US dollars per kilometer. Is that worthwhile? This is the investable question. So it's very difficult to find an exogenous infrastructure setting to explore this causal effect. That's why these kind of research is very needed, but not much. Okay. In this paper, we use exogenous international direct flight setting to examine the economic effects of airport construction. So, and as academics, probably for the students, maybe you heard a lot of scholars on TV talking about big problems, big questions. But for our serious researchers, we find out some very small, tiny research questions to investigate, and we want to find rigorous evidence to prove our opinions. So in this paper, we study the causal impact of the airport construction and to the effects of airport construction on the corporate financing through the syndicated loans. Syndicated loans. How many of you guys are familiar with the term syndicated loans? Can you raise your hand? No one? Syndicated loans? Not even for our professors? Maybe you guys don't do the syndicated loan research. It's fine. Before I write this paper, I did not know this. So bank loans, you must be familiar with the bank loans. You borrow money from the banks, and the banks loan the loans to some companies. The company uses this loans to develop the business and repay the principal payments, the loans, and the interests. The syndicated loans are a great amount of loans, a very significant a portion of all the loans in the world. It basically means that a company is very large, usually a multinational company. It's very large, it's borrowing a lot of money from a bank. And the bank does not have enough money, or it doesn't want to take such a risk to lend so much money to a company. So this bank will call the other banks to form a syndicate. It's like a trust. It's like a group of banks lending to this multinational company altogether. So this whole group of banks, we call that a syndicate. And this loan is called a syndicated loan. It's like I'm borrowing money from our Ding, and he doesn't have enough money. So he calls the other Dings and associated Dings to loan money to me. So they together are called a syndicate. And the money that I borrowed is called syndicated loans. So you see, the syndicated loans amount is much larger than Euro loans, okay? And the total proceeds of new syndicated loans amount to 4.6 trillion US dollars over the globe in 2019, representing 8% of total outstanding debt for publicly listed firms. Although you probably think like 8% is not very large, but remember, this is 8% of outstanding debt. The debt include the bonds, loans, the mortgages, a lot of other different borrowings. So the 8% of the total borrowing is a significantly large amount. So to compare with this number, in 2019, the total IPO, initial public offerings proceeds, or the funds raised from over 1,000 IPO cases in the world were only 198, were only around like 200 billion US dollars. So total IPO was around 200 billion, but the syndicated loan is amount to 4.6 trillion US dollars. You can see the market is super huge. Okay. So that's why investigating the airport construction's effect on the syndicated loans is meaningful, because syndicated loan itself is very important. So this is we produced this figure from the deal scan data set. Not sure if you are very familiar with this. This is a data set specifically for loan and bank loan research. So nearly 4,000 syndicated loans were borrowed from non-domestic lenders, almost 6 times higher than the number in 1989. So many of the loans were borrowed from non-domestic lenders. For example, usually some developing countries companies borrow money from developed countries banks, okay, and they borrow a lot of money, and several developed countries banks form a syndicate and lend a lot of money to the developing countries corporations. The corporations can not only be the publicly listed corporations, can also be the government affiliated corporations. The secret of it's not the secret, but the method that the Chinese government used to build the infrastructure, like the high-speed railway, the highway, the airport, is through the government sponsored, the government affiliated corporation, and use the government's corporation, the government-owned corporation, to borrow money from around the country or even from the globe, to borrow the money, then build the highways and the railways. Okay. So syndicated loan is a loan issued to a firm jointly by more than one financial institution. So it has 2 concepts. If you need to understand this research, you need to understand some basic concepts of the syndicated loans. So syndicated loan is about a group of syndicate banks. Okay, so there was one leader who arranged this. It's called a lead arranger. So I first come to him for borrowing money. So he acts as a lead arranger. He leads this lending. So he calls his colleagues. Said like, okay, Zigang, this guy is good. So how about we just lend some money to him? Maybe he comes back to Hong Kong and earns some money he can give us back. So he's a lead arranger. His colleagues are the participants. We call that participant lenders. And the steps follow this. Basically, he calls his colleagues to lend me money. And during this whole maturity, he needs to monitor my business operation. Maybe I go to Hong Kong, I disappear. Now all of your money will be gone, right? You need you probably need some local guys, like a Hong Kong guy. The Hong Kong guy only learns like 1% of the whole total loans, but his function is to monitor me. He visits me every week to check whether I'm still there, okay? And or he does some internet search about my business description, whether this business really exists there. And during the life of the loan, the lead arranger monitors the firm, governs the terms of the loan, calculates the interest payments, and enforces financial covenants. The financial covenants are the conditions, the terms affiliated with this loan that I have to obey, as a borrower I have to obey. So I, as a borrower, default on a loan if I miss any required interest payment. Say I come back to Hong Kong, I should have regularly paid the interest payments every month. In some months I disappeared. Then it means that I defaulted. So this is a typical syndicated loan example, okay, in this data set. So you find that this is the lead borrower is a bank in Australia. So the Australian bank, the lender called Westpac Banking Corporation, lending money with other 16 participants to lend money to Huawei Tech Investments. So it's a this is in Hong Kong, but actually it's the headquarters is in neighboring city, Shenzhen. So Huawei's headquarters is in Shenzhen, neighboring Hong Kong, and this is a financial investment corporation affiliated with Huawei in Hong Kong. So it borrows because Hong Kong is a financial center. It can borrow money. It can facilitate Huawei to borrow money from all around the world. So it borrows money from the Australian bank and other 16 banks around the world. So it borrows 550 million US dollars, 550 million US dollars within 60 months, 65 years. So after 5 years, it needs to repay. Okay. And we have the long spread. The students, are you familiar with the long spread? The long spread is the borrowing rate and the lending rates. Okay. When the loan spread is larger, it means that the cost of borrowing the loan is larger. So it's an indicator of the borrowing cost. It basically means the interest, some measure of the interest rate and liquidity. Is there any questions? Maybe it's too academic for you guys, for the students? No questions? Okay. Good. So far, so good. So we want to study the effects on the syndicated loans, but what indicators of syndicated loans we want to study on? We study these indicators. The first one is the interest spread. It's a key factor under consideration because when the spread is lower, it means the spread is interest. Okay, the bank's money is from their depositors. The depositors, you deposit the money into the bank at say 4%. I'm not sure, like in VN, like what's the average interest rate? 4%, 6%. Yeah. So the depositors got 6%. And the banks lend this money to Huawei by 10%. Then the 4% is called the spread. Okay, it's called the spread. When the spread is going down, the bank profit is going down. But when the spread is going up, the firm value will go down because your cost of borrowing is higher. So the firm value is getting down. So the literature says that 1% interest drop can lead to an 8 basis point reduction of a bank's profits and 2% lower for the Tobin's Q, which is measure of firm value for the US firms. Okay. So this is important. So I have deleted all of the literature in this slide to save time. The literature has discussed many determinants of the spread, the loan spread. There are like hundreds of different papers. But this paper is specifically talking about the geographical distance between the international borrowers and lenders. So if you look at the global financial centers, you see that these are the top financial centers in the world. Okay, New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, Paris, and you find that 5 of them are also top 10 L network centers in the world. So they are the L network center, and they have the biggest international airports. And we want to take London as an example. London is here, and this blue dot represents, so I produce this figure, so from the DealScan database. So this is every city's borrowing money, the borrowing amount, okay, the syndicated loan amount. And you can see that this is London, and this is a London company's borrowing, and it's very large. And this is New York, and this is Hong Kong, this is Seoul, okay, and probably somewhere is Paris. And you see that this line, I will introduce the setting. This line is a legal, there was a legal requirement by the US regulatory office and the Europe regulatory office that for international direct flights, the flight cannot fly for over 12 hours, which translates to a 6,000 miles distance. So the law says that if the two cities distance, the distance between the cities are definitely exogenous. You cannot change the distance between the two cities. If the two cities distance is longer than 6,000 miles, then the law says that you cannot have the direct flights. You must have the indirect flights. So if if a city's distance is from London is longer than 6,000 miles, then for the London bankers, they have to make an international transfer, which will significantly increase their psychological costs and monetary costs and time to commute to another city that is longer than 6,000 miles. And it is harder for that city to borrow money from London because the London bankers do not want to make a transfer to fly there. Okay, so that's an exogenous setting for us to tap the question of the infrastructure of the direct flights. So we have several hypotheses. According to the academic literature, which probably can be boring for the students. When I was an undergrad, I don't like this. I want to listen to the stories, not the literature. But if you want to do a Ph.D., if you want to learn more literature things. The first hypothesis is that when a borrower's headquarters is in a city with higher centrality in a global network of L-links, the interest spread will be lower. It means that the cost of borrowing will be lower. Here, I need to explain another concept. It's called centrality. How many of you guys know the concept of centrality? Centrality? No one? So centrality is this. Is this computer connected to the internet? Okay. So this is an important concept for me to explain my research. By the way, this is I will centrality. Wiki. So this is so this is a network. Okay, this is a network. So in each network, so imagine that in this network, every dot is a city, and each line it means a direct flight. Okay, so you have an international direct flight network. So how do we know that this node, we say this each dot is called a node, and each line is called an edge. So this node is more important than this node. The node in the central area is more important than the node in the periphery area. How do we know that? We need to have a quantitative measure, right? So to measure that, we have different ways. One very simple way is to see how many links this node has. This is called degree centrality. Okay, degree centrality. If you are linked with more other nodes, then your centrality is higher. Degree centrality is higher than the nodes with fewer links. Okay, there were other centrality measures, but I will not introduce everyone. I just make a introduction. Say this is a degree centrality, and this is eigenvector centrality. So the meaning of eigenvector centrality is that, you see, so maybe some student is very social. So that student, he knows 2,000 other students. Okay. I only know 3 people, Putin, Xi Jinping, and Biden. Who is more important? In an interpersonal network, who's more important? I think I'm more important. How do I know that I'm important? because I need to know. So this measure depends on the importance of your connected dots. And how to measure the connected dots importance? You need to measure the connected dots importance. So this is kind of an iterated computation. This is eigenvector centrality. So there were different, like betweenness, closeness, harmonic difference centrality. If you want to know more centrality measures, computation, the programming, I have an advertisement. University of Hong Kong's FinTech Master Program teaches this, and I teach this course. Okay, so this is an advertisement I want to make. So if a headquarter is in a more important city in the L network, it has more links or more important links, we say the borrowing cost is lower, meaning that the interest spread is lower. And also we hypothesize that the syndicated loans have a smaller but more diversified lending syndicates. It means that it will have lower cost of monitoring. So more people want to participate into this lending. And participants, you don't have to monitor. You just rely on the lead arranger to monitor that for you. You just give your money to them, to the syndicates. Okay. And the third hypothesis is that when the firm is borrowing in a city with a more important, more L-link city, and the syndicated loans will have fewer and more flexible covenants. Strict covenants means that conditions affiliated with this borrowing. Say he lends money to me, and he requires me as an additional covenant. He requires me to call him every day. This is an additional covenant to prove I'm still alive. I'm not running away. He asks me to call him using the Hong Kong phone number every day to prove that I'm still in Hong Kong. So this is a covenant. So that covenant can be said very strict. So if he feels very comfortable with me, he can just ask me to call him every week, because that's called a more flexible covenant. Okay. So we hypothesize that when the city's network centrality is going up, meaning that your city's international airport has more links, then the cost of monitoring is going down, and the covenants can be more flexible and fewer. So the lender will not have so much requirement to a borrower. And also, we hypothesize that the lead arrangers will have lower fees. Okay, the different kinds of monitoring fees and other fees can be lower. Aside from the spread, the interest spread, there are also the fees, just like in the IPO, there are fees. So the fees are usually higher when you find it's more risky, or it has you need to do a lot of due diligence. Students, you know what a due diligence is? Due diligence? Do you know the term due diligence? The due diligence means that the work that you need to do to verify something. Say in the IPO process. So a firm is selling its stocks, right? It claims that it has so much asset. I say, I have 100 factories, and this is my stock, investing to my company's stock. You have to verify that this company has 100 factories. So you need some investment bankers to fly to that area to see, okay, this is a factory, but is this factory really that company's factory? You need to talk with the workers. Are you being hired to just work here for one day to show that for me? Or you're really working here? You want to investigate the talk with the neighbors, the communities, the governments to prove that company is really, that factory is really this company's factory. So all of the costs associated with your flight, your living costs there, your hotel costs, your meals, everything, they're called the service fees. Okay, these service fees are a part of the due diligence fees. And in the syndicated loan borrowing, there are also fees associated with that. Is that okay? Okay, we clear? So HKU master program is really good. You should apply for that. So we got how many minutes more do I have? 10 more minutes? Good. Okay. Yeah. So most of the hypothesis that has been done. And so we got the data from various different sources. We got our global flight data from the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. And we got our loan data from DealScan, the firm fundamental data from CompuStat and Reuters WorldScope. For all of the companies around the world, we have their total assets, their financial statements, all of the data. And we construct for each company, we construct the cities different measures of centralities and whether they have the direct flights. And for the syndicated loans, we have different loan indicators like the spread, which is the most important one, the cost of the lending, and also the maturity, the size. And this is a whole DealScan data structure. It has different variables. We use different variables to construct that. We don't have time for this, so let me just skip this. And for the borrower's fundamentals, when you want to compare the company's borrowing costs, you also not only need to consider its cities L network indicators, there are other indicators affecting their borrowing costs. So for example, the large companies and small companies. Huawei is a huge company in the world. So it goes to the bank, it says like, I need to borrow at 2%. People say 2% maybe a little bit too low. Huawei said at most 2.5%, lend it to me, or I go to somebody else. $500 million. The bank says, okay, fine. You're a big customer, okay? I, as a person, go to the bank. Before I talk, bank said, like, go away, right? Like, so total assets matters. So we need to know the total assets, the size, and the profitability, leverage ratio. The leverage means that the debt to total assets ratio, and all different financial indicators for each firms. So we need to control these firms, different other indicators, so that we can investigate the firm, the easiness to do flight transportation. This indicators effects on the spread, the interest rate, and the other indicators. So our sample covers from 1989 to 2014, and we made some screening of the samples, and these are the summary statistics of the data. And the most important one that I want to talk about before I show you the results is the setting, the discontinuity setting. We use a technique called regression discontinuity. This regression discontinuity method is a method of exploring the exogeneity in the empirical studies in economics. So the inventor won the Nobel Prize last year or 2 years ago, maybe, Joshua Angrist, so at MIT, and some other guys. So this discontinuity setting originates from two laws. So the FAA required that since 1950s that the two-pilot crew could fly at most 12 hours within a 24-hour period. And the European regulators adopt a daily maximum of 13 hours of flight in the basis crew. So basically it means that cities are disproportionately more likely to be connected by flights when the distance between their airports is just under 6,000 miles than just above the 6,000 miles. That means if we compare the city pairs with the distance just below the 6,000 miles and the city pairs with the distance above 6,000 miles, then just above 6,000 miles city pairs will have indirect flights. Then just below 6,000 miles cities, they have direct flights. So we can compare the exogenous effect of the indirect and direct flights on the syndicated loans costs. So this is a setting, okay? So if you look at all the possible city pairs histogram, these are the frequency, okay? And these are the horizontal axis of the miles. So it means that for the city pairs with a distance of 5,500 miles, you have these many, these percentage of city pairs. And the city pairs, you can see that they are quite, the distribution is quite smooth. They're continuous, right? But if you look at the next one, the city pairs with syndicated loans, you find that this is striking. You find that just above 6,000 miles, the syndicated loans amount drops significantly. So there could be many reasons, but I propose my hypothesis. This is because they don't have the direct flights. You know, direct flights is very important for international travels, specifically compared to the domestic travels. Because for domestic travels, if I have transfer, okay, I just wait for 1 hour and I transfer to another flight. But for the international travels, you probably need to apply for one more visa. That's a huge other cost. And probably you need to go to another country with different language. When I studied at Columbia University, we had a professor. We had a professor who's Indian guy. And in some week, he disappeared. We sit in the class. He didn't show up. He totally didn't show up. Then after a week, he showed up. He apologized and he said, like, the reason was because when he flied from India to the US, the distance was too long, so he made an international transfer in Europe. But Europe had some natural disaster or bad weather, so the flight just stopped. And he did not have the European visa. So he slept in the airport for 3 days and totally missed the class. So if you are making an international transfer, it is more difficult. So that's why when the two cities distance is above 6,000 miles, the bankers do not want to go there. The banker says, like, wow, if I need to monitor you, I need to make an international transfer, I'm not going there. So I don't lend money to you. Okay, the international syndicated loan is dramatically decreased. And this, we come back to the London's example, and you see that you just compare the, you compare, how do I, here? Yeah. So this is 6,000 miles. If you compare these dots and these dots here, this band, that the cities with the distance just below 6,000 miles and the cities with the distance just above the 6,000 miles, you see that for the cities just below the 6,000 miles, you see some borrowers. And you see Hong Kong, the borrowers, right? So when I presented in Australia and some other universities, people argue. They say, well, this is big, not because the distance is closer to London, it's because it's Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a financial center. But if you look at Singapore, this is Singapore. Singapore is also a financial center, but you see there is significantly smaller amount of syndicated loans borrowed from London. Because the London bankers, they don't want to fly to Singapore. They have direct flights to Hong Kong, but they don't have the direct flights to Singapore. So, although Singapore is also another Asian financial center, they significantly less borrow from London. Okay. So we have some other balance tests to some rigorous tests to show that our samples are almost the same before the flights, and this is our discontinuity regression sample. The students can be very confused, but the professors will be okay. So we have some indicators. This is our main explanatory variable. The distance is greater than 6,000 miles. And this is our dependent variable, and the average loan spread between the borrowers and CDK and CDJ. And these are, we have some other high order polynomial functions and some different kernel types. This is all the different parameter settings for the discontinuity regression. And we find that in the uniform kernel or triangular kernel or some other kernel, and we find that the distance, when the distance is greater than 6,000 miles, the interest spreads significantly go up. The borrowing cost significantly go up. And this is discontinuity figures. And you can see that when the distance is above the 6,000 miles, you see this is the loan spread, the borrowing cost, disproportionately, discontinuously jump up. Okay, it jumps up. It jumps up. Okay, and we did some placebo tests and some baseline models, and we find that this is other tests. So this is So another thing that I want to emphasize is that, we did some passenger network, and the passenger network centrality significantly reduces the loan spread. When the centrality is higher, it means that your city is well connected. Your borrowing cost is lower. However, the cargo network centrality does not matter. So we use the cargo, the goods. There are some flights transporting the goods. So we use the goods transportation network measure, and we find no results on the loan spread. So it means that the borrowing cost reduction is because of the passengers transportation, not the goods transportation, supporting our hypothesis that is because of international indirect and direct flight difference. Okay, and we also have some other results saying that the number of loans can go up, and the number of revolvable loans, it's a different kind of loans, can go up, and the bank term loans also go up, and we find, and we did a lot of other robustness tests. Okay, and we also find that the loan share HHI is going down. It means that there are, HHI is a Herfindahl index. It means that there were more participants. When the cost of monitoring is going down, there were more participants. And there are more leader shares. The leaders think that the cost is, the risk is getting lower. It wants to take more shares of the loans. And the number of leaders is going down. They don't need other leaders to help them monitor. And the number of participants is going down. Actually, it's going down. Let me investigate this later. And this number of amendments is going down. And the fees are going down. Okay, so there were some other links with the literature. I think I can skip this, and this is and I think this is the fees, the initial covenants, the covenants, and the time is different covenants indicators. They're going down. So basically, in conclusion, we find that the L links facilitate financing through the international syndicated loans. So when the city has a higher centrality in the global L network, the firms are easier to borrow money at lower cost. And the effects is through easy transportation of people, the passenger network, rather than the products, the goods. Okay, and the information asymmetry between borrowers and lenders has effects. So it also emphasizes the importance of building international airports and the direct flights. And this has a good and positive effects on the economic growth. And this is my research. And thank you very much. And so if you have, sorry, I probably went somehow over time, but if you have any questions, like, do we still have time for questions? Maybe not. Yeah, if you have questions, or if we don't have time, you can always search my name on the website. If you have any questions or any comments or any criticisms, if you want to criticize my research, say like you're wrong, you have to improve the here and there. I have a counterexample or something. I'm you're welcome to contact me. So if you have some quick questions, you can ask now. If you don't have quick questions, we can just move to the next step. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Easier to work remotely, right? Mhm. That's a very good question. That's a very good question. So you see the data. So our sample covers from 1989 to 2014. So at least from 1989 to 2010, I think, the before people have the mobile phones to make easy communication, I think these results still hold because my data has showed that these are the results. Whether the remote the development of the internet can reduce this result, that's a good question. I think it will reduce it a little bit. As for example, if I want to check as a foreign lender, if I want to check whether this company is really registered in Hong Kong, I probably don't have to just fly to Hong Kong. I can just send an email to the Hong Kong government or the business registration and pay some small fee, and they will just send me some certificates. That is possible. But I think the airports direct flights still have positive impacts. For example, if I claim that my factory, I say in Beiyang, my factory has 1,000 people working for me or 10,000 people working for me. And I take a picture to you, send it to you. The picture has a lot of people, but you cannot count that it's 10,000 people. And you don't even know whether these 10,000 people are their performers or they're just temporarily hired or full-time hired. I think it's still necessary for you to fly to Ho Chi Minh City, then go to Beiyang to really visit that factory, to talk with these people, to do the due diligence. So I think that the effects can be mitigated, but not that much for the real business, especially manufacturing business operation. Yeah. That's a good question. I can, but I haven't. I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, I can do that by year, maybe by 5-year window, and see whether that effects has been reduced. Thank you. Mhm. So he does the due diligence in the U.S. when he stays in Vietnam. Uh, I see. Hmm. That's a good example. Thanks. I'll consider that and do some by-year analysis. Yeah, 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 yeah. If all of the government materials can be uploaded online, I think the importance of this can be even less in the future. Yes, yes, yes. Another question is whether you can trust this person domestically. For example, my PhD dissertation is about the fraud of Chinese companies listed in the Nasdaq or NYSE. So the U.S. Due diligence, U.S. auditing firms hire the Chinese auditing firms to do the auditing for them, but the Chinese auditing firms collaborated with the Chinese firms. So they they actually got some shares of the Chinese firms. The Chinese firm is a blank check company. It doesn't have any assets. So can you imagine that 1/3 of the US listed Chinese companies, they totally have no assets. They're blank check company. They got listed in Nasdaq and NYSE. They have no assets at all. So my PhD dissertation is about that, to investigate why. It's just because the delegation of the auditing job from the US to China. So it means that the US auditing firm still has a necessity to visit China to do the work. So delegating the job to local attorneys probably will cause some further principal agent problem. Yeah. Mm. This one? Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah. And I also, through my trip to Vietnam, I think I even more believe in this in this research because you see, if I don't fly here directly and coming to the university and look at the students, I would not know the real situation, and I would not know that the Communist Party has a very strong influence on this classroom, just as in China. It's so it's indeed important for people to fly here. Yeah, for see it for yourself exactly. Yeah. Thanks very much. Okay.